instead of one day, make it day one. Whatever you're thinking or dreaming, do it.
Never going to regret travel.
No.
And it can be expensive. It certainly takes a lot of money for us away from other things, physical things for sure, but even retirement. But like you said, this is the time. Money returns. Time doesn't.
That's Phil and Aaron from Always Be Changing. They are a semi-nomadic travel family who are striking a balance between commitments at home while still being able to explore the world and have adventures with their two young children. They seem to have found a solution for the challenge that almost all travel families face: child education. Some of the areas we cover today: what semi-nomadic travel is and how it works for the Lockwood family, how travel has affected and shaped their children and family, how they handle schooling while at home and while on the road. We even take a bit of a dive and go behind the scenes of their successful YouTube channel and the things they've done to grow to over 100,000 subs. Hopefully you enjoy this chat, because I certainly did. And if you want to learn more about the Lockwood family and Always Be Changing, I have a link to all their socials in the description and in the pinned comments. Let's get into it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about you guys. Tell the audience a little bit more about Always Be Changing and the Always Be Changing family.
All right, we are a travel family and we create content. We've been traveling as much as we can. How many countries have we been to?
I think it's 22 now, about to be 23 slash 24.
And that's in about 2 years. And we travel semi-nomadically. So we have our home base in Denver. And we are traveling the world, coming home, traveling, coming home. And that has a ton of benefits.
Yeah, awesome. It's I heard you guys have mentioned semi-nomadic a lot in your blogs and on the website and everything. Let's talk a little bit about that semi-nomadic lifestyle before we get into all the questions, because that is definitely something that interests me, learning more about how that works for you guys and how you guys make it work logistically.
Right. There are very few downsides to it, but some of the benefits are packing. You know, you don't have to pack for a winter trip and a beach vacation just in case you don't know where you're going or where you're going to end up in a month. So you can pack appropriately for each trip that you go on. The kids have stability with, their bedrooms, their friends in the neighborhood, family, holidays, stuff like that. So a lot of benefits to it. The only downside, I would say, is the cost, the price of the flights.
And to some extent, the duplicate cost of lodging, because we're always paying our mortgage. And on top of that, we're paying for wherever we stay when we travel, which isn't ideal.
Right.
So what would be the average length of a semi-nomadic vacation or like trip for you guys?
Right now, because our oldest daughter's from my first marriage and we want to see her 50% of the time, we try not to be gone for more than 3 weeks at a time. And then that allows us to do that. And a lot of our trips are even shorter. I mean, sometimes we're doing 3 or 4 nights some places. We prefer the longer ones, but of course, we just want to make sure that we're back here so that we can see her.
And where are most of these trips, like where are you going to most often? Because I'd imagine traveling, so like being from Australia, traveling from Australia to the US is quite a mission. And I imagine the opposite is probably exactly the same, if not worse. So like where do most of your semi-nomadic trips sort of center around?
It's changed a lot in the 3 years that we've traveled. I mean, we started traveling a lot kind of during COVID, frankly. And so we had limitations in terms of what countries were open to us. So it ended up being a lot of North America, primarily the US, Mexico, Caribbean area.
Yeah.
And then maybe the following year, it was very Europe heavy for us. So we were doing Italy quite a bit. We got France multiple times, and then we were hitting Germany, Croatia.
Yeah.
And then in the past year, we've been very heavy on the Asia side, which is great. I mean, I think it also allowed us to ease into the flights, because until 2 years ago, I had never been off this continent. My longest flight ever was probably like 3.5 or 4 hours tops. So even flying from here to Europe was a really big culture shock. I think for all of the kids too. Erin had been overseas before when she was younger, but now we'll do 16-hour flights to Asia and back. And it's just, I mean, that's life. It's not unbearable at all. And in some ways, because we get so much awesome flight status with our airline, we'll get business class upgrades for free that makes the trip actually fun.
Yeah. And all the miles we're racking up, that's a huge plus and benefit, because we've got like twice the miles we can go with it. First, we pay for it. then we fly for free after.
Yeah, that's amazing. Obviously, traveling to Asia, what, about 16 hours, 15, 16 hours, including stopovers and bits and pieces. How do you mentally prepare for a trip like that? How do you mentally prepare the kids for it? Do you have any travel tips for people that are looking at these big long haul flights across the world, basically?
I was going to say that's a great question because we're literally doing that right now. We leave in a day or two for Asia.
And this one's a very different kind of trip for us because sometimes we're doing 16 hours like straight. That's one flight, right?
Yeah.
To get from here to there, which has its pros and cons. But this trip, we're actually breaking it up primarily because we need more flight legs to maintain our status, right?
Yeah, it's strategic.
So we're going from Denver to LA, LA to Honolulu, Honolulu to Guam, Guam to Manila.
Over 2 or 3 days, right?
Yeah, we're spending the night in Hawaii. We're getting some filming in for 2 other episodes there, in addition to the travel day episode that we're doing. So that not only gets us the flights, but it breaks it up a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that jet lag piece works.
Yeah.
Otherwise, obviously, we've assembled a great collection of our favorite travel gear that makes it more comfortable. We've got good neck pillows. We've got great eye masks. We're using a mobile app called Time Shifter, thank you, that helps plan everything, tells you when to sleep, when to take caffeine, when to get light, and so on. So, we've got a lot of little tricks in the bag that I think help make it a non-issue, even for the kids. I think they probably do better than we do, honestly.
They get excited about new products we find. We just found this thing called a nap arc, and the kids are literally fighting over it. They can't wait to fly because they want to use this product, this nap arc.
Something I noticed when I was reading the website and learning a lot more about you guys was this shift in mindset from one day to day one. You talk about that. Can you explain a little bit about what that sort of thought process was and what sort of ignited the travel in the first place?
Well, one of Aaron's and my favorite things to do in the whole world is walk. The cooler the place we can walk, the better. But really, it's mostly about us just being able to talk, brainstorm things related to business, to lifestyle, etc. So we've always done this for many years. And here in our neighborhood in Denver, back when all 3 kids were in in-person school, we would get them off to school, and then Aaron and I would go walk for hours, and we would talk about things like, all right, one day when the kids are off to college, let's buy a place on Coronado Island, and we'll live there, and this is what every day is going to look like. And so we were just constantly planning for the future.
One day.
Yeah, one day we'll do it, one day we'll do it. And then at some point, for whatever reason, it was a mind shift, and we said, why do we have to wait? Why can't we just make it happen? I mean, a lot of people live on the island, or at least own homes on that island. So why can't we just be one of them? So we just took a few relatively simple steps in mindset and in logistics and made it happen. We bought a house on the island and thought it was just going to be a vacation home for us, but then COVID came around, and we were like, let's lock down on the beach instead of here.
It was perfect timing to do that because we loved it. Loved having to quarantine there.
And that just totally shifted our mindset.
Could think of worse places to do it.
Shifted our mindset from thinking that we need to wait to have the life of our dreams and to instead just start living it.
Create it. Yeah.
I've heard that a lot, actually, just recently. A lot of people are saying, when the kids are older, we'll start traveling, or when the kids go off to college, we'll start traveling. But the problem is, the older you get, the harder logistically it is to travel because you can't do the waterfalls, you can't do all the adventurous stuff that your mind thinks you can do until you get out there and you go, oh, actually, my back's sore, I can't jump off that. And you end up doing cruises like every other old person.
Yeah, and one small motivation for me was also the photos. When you look back and you look at your travels, I don't want them to be all old, wrinkly, retired, walking slowly. I want us to be jumping off of, like you were saying, canyons and into waters and wearing the bikinis while we still can.
I also have to say, so many other families or parents, I think we were in that mindset of things will be different and in some ways better when the kids go off to college because it opens up our freedom. And I think what we've learned over the past few years of traveling with our kids and not having them be in in-person school all day is that it adds so much richness to our lives, to the experience of travel, to to be able to give that to them as an education and just as an exciting experience, but also to be able to share those experiences together. I mean, at this point, it's like kind of sad to think that at some point in just a few years, we'll be traveling on our own because they'll probably be on to other things. So
it literally is making me tear up thinking about it. Like, I feel like we used to think that travel was for adults only. Like, this is our vacation away from parenting, away from kids. And now that we travel with the kids, I don't want to change it. And I want to cry thinking about them going off and not traveling with us anymore.
One of the things that I really wanted to talk today about is schooling. Looks like you guys are, for the positives of semi-nomadic lifestyle, there's actually one of the negatives, which is the fact that your kids are in and out of what would be traditional school, but you guys seem to have a solution for that. So tell us a little bit about how you guys do your schooling for the kids.
Yeah, so Reagan is 16. She's junior in high school, 11th grade, and she's in person. Because that's her choice, and so she's a one-off in that regard. Brooklyn and Colt have been in online school this is their third or fourth year?
Their fourth year.
So hard to keep track.
Yeah.
But we had enrolled them in online school even before the COVID lockdown. So that was just kind of a plan all along. But we went from using the state-sanctioned school for California because we were living there to selling our island home and needing to find a new solution. So now we've got an online-only private school, which is actually out of Arizona here in the U.S. And because it's online only, they're really good at it. And I think so many in-person schools tried to do the online thing during COVID and did a really poor job.
They didn't know how to do it. Yeah.
But this place has it dialed in, so it's working out really well for us. You can do synchronous learning or asynchronous learning, which is very important for us because, when we're here in Denver, basically the same time zone, they can jump on these live classes all day long. So it's kind of like being in the classroom, hearing teachers being able to interact live. But they can also watch recordings of those classes later on if they need to, or if they can read the lesson and get through the course material without even having that video instruction, they can do that too. So when we're on the other side of the planet, they can still functionally complete school requirements as necessary. And that's what they've been doing for the past 3 years, is mostly asynchronous because we're just always somewhere different. So it's a great program in terms of flexibility, getting a real private school education, so high quality, but without having to pay typical private school tuitions, which at least in the US are exorbitant.
Right. And they have full support and access to their teachers. Like, I don't have to be their teacher because I'm a horrible, horrible teacher. I can't teach anybody to make toast, let alone math. So it's such a huge benefit that they have that support and that resource for learning, but they can also do it at their own pace. Colt is different than Brooklyn by far. They're so opposite. Colt wants to finish one entire subject in a month and then work on the next one and the next one. And Brooklyn wants to evenly work on her subjects throughout the year. And they have the freedom to choose to do that.
Let's talk a little bit about this asynchronous versus synchronous education. So a lot of world schooling families and a lot of families that are on the road have to, through lack of choice, basically do asynchronous education because, time zones, all those kinds of things. How have you found Brooklyn and Colt have gone transitioning from synchronous to asynchronous, back to synchronous, back to asynchronous? Have you found that to be challenging, or have they just adapted to it and kept sort of moving along with it?
It was actually an easy transition because of the timing of it. Like Phil said, we had enrolled them for the following year in online school right before the pandemic had started. So when the first experience with online school was with their friends, and the rest of the world was doing the same thing. So in that sense, it was sort of an easy transition. And the school they were in at the time that went to online was all over the place. They didn't know how to do online learning. So it was a little bit of a struggle. And then when the following year started in the new program where they were streamlined teaching online, it was easier. So it was like, we're with everybody else now this is an easier program and easier and easier.
And there are some differences between Brooklyn and Colt in terms of the program, and it varies from year to year, week to week, honestly. Brooklyn really hit her stride last school year and was just such a self-starter, up every morning, getting at it, working ahead, minimal questions for us, minimal questions for teachers, just really blew through the course material.
Yeah.
And, Colt would probably rather be doing other things throughout the day.
Like
and
catching lizards.
so sometimes he moves a little bit more quickly through the stuff than he should. But I mean, that's, typical issues. I think even if you're an in-person school, kids are kids, and their interest level in a subject or in school in general can wane from year to year.
That's such a good point. And how do you guys tie the travel? Do you guys try tie the travel and the experiences you have in traveling into the education that you have for Brooklyn and Colt?
We try to as much as we can, but Phil this has been on his bucket list for as long as I can remember, and I'll let you take over. Phil's got this awesome plan for October.
So as of late, once again, when I was a kid, I think my favorite holiday was Halloween. And it is again now. It's like my favorite time of year. Now that we're traveling a lot and we're getting plenty of warm beach time in, I'm like, yeah, let's have the orange leaves, the changing of the season kind of thing. And I can't think of too many places or experiences around the world that are cooler for Halloween than Salem, Massachusetts here, because of the famous Salem witch trials that took place hundreds of years ago. And so we're actually going to Salem in the week prior to Halloween this year, and we're going to go experience that side of history and just, the culture of the area, which is really cool. So Brooklyn and Colt School is actually setting us up with a custom lesson plan around the Salem witch trials. So we're going to be studying that as part of their curriculum leading up to the trip, and then we'll get to go see it in person, and we'll visit the Salem Witch Museum, the memorial, see exactly where the accused witches were hung and everything. And I love that component of the travel, like being able to put a name to the face, essentially,
Right.
but in such a cool educational construct. I know that for me, like reading and learning everything from textbooks as a kid was, for the most part, really boring. But then when you go to the Smithsonian Museum and see the hat that Abraham Lincoln was wearing the night he was shot, and it just connects the old with the present. It's such a cooler way to learn.
Brings an emotional attachment to what you're learning.
Yeah, but we've had so many experiences like that with the kids over the past couple of years where we're on location and they can tell us things about that location because they already studied it in school.
Yeah. And, it's not just perfect timing. We can't always do the perfect timing with what they're learning and where we're going. But if the kids learn about something in school and then 3 months later we go and visit the pyramids, then there's still a deeper connection to it when we go, and vice versa. Like, let's say we go and visit the pyramids and then a few months later they start learning about it in school. Then they're more connected to that learning material. So it benefits no matter when or where you travel.
So how do you find booking, because you guys are going to the Philippines. So what is involved with you sort of building out an itinerary and planning out this recent trip that you're doing now? Like, how do you do that from the US to make sure that when you land, it's all to what you expect and there's no tricky surprises or anything like that when you hit the ground?
Well, so it's a team effort. We actually have someone on our team who lives in the Philippines who's been helping out some also. And I should note, we're going to be in Southeast Asia for about 3 weeks for this trip, but it's not all in the Philippines. In fact, maybe half of it is in the Philippines, between Manila and then El Nido. And then we're heading to Malaysia also. So we'll be in Kuala Lumpur and
Ipoh and
Penang.
Penang. Yeah.
So a lot of different moving parts there. And to some extent, it can be a little bit of a house of cards. Like a week ago, we found out that one of our flights was just canceled out of the blue, weeks in advance. We're just not doing it. So we had to completely rearrange aspects of the trip, which makes it challenging. But, between local resources and our own research and just the experience of being to some of these places already, you get the pieces put together. But You have the luxury of being able to stay for extended periods in some of the places that you go, Jimmy. And as a general rule, we don't. So we try to plan out as much of it as we can in advance.
And I think it makes a difference in cost too, because we're spending so much on the flights getting out there. We want to be cost conscious in what we're doing. So if lodging is planned out ahead of time, we're going to save money versus last minute. Where are we going to stay? Oh, this is $800 a night, and it's the only one available. So I think it makes a difference in price, and then you know what you're getting into before you go.
And how do you guys handle that? What you want to do theoretically doesn't always marry up with what your bodies will allow, and sometimes the store and stuff like that. So how do you handle those times where it's like, we booked this and like we're a week into the trip and we booked this and we really we don't necessarily feel like doing it, or kids are getting a little bit shirty because they're kind of getting over doing heaps of stuff. How do you guys handle that and when that pops up?
Well, I think we've been doing this a few years now, so we've gotten to know the kids and their bodies and how they're changing and what happens when we travel and how many days. So I feel like I have a really good feel for when they're going to need a break. And then also with the way that we do our channel, Phil and I are really guiding it and driving it and narrating throughout. So if the kids need a little break, then we just kind of take over, and they take the time they need to have naps and rests and mental breaks too.
But we're not against canceling things last minute too. I think when we were in India, that was a regular occurrence because we had so much going on trying to see the whole country in just a few weeks. And so we were calling audibles all the time, like, for various reasons. I mean, one is just like, I don't think we need to go. One is we need a rest day. Sometimes it's like we'd find out that we weren't allowed to film there. And so we're like, how important is the experience versus the content? And if it's not important for the experience so much, then we'd say, let's just cancel that. So it's constant adjustments when we're actually on the field.
Right.
Yeah, and like things like sickness, right? Like you get sick and or you eat something that's not great, and it's like, okay, well, we need 3 days.
Yeah, it happens. That happened in Vietnam with us. Colt got really sick, and so Phil and Brooklyn had to take over, and they did the experiences and the episode, and they were fantastic. But Colt definitely needed a day or two.
I noticed the plaque behind you, the 100,000 subscriber plaque. Firstly, congratulations on that. And I think a lot of people may or may not have heard the channel, but this is how I actually found out about you guys. Was we were in the Philippines, we went to Alegria Canyoneering, and I really, the same way you were saying how you want to show the kids what's coming up and learn a little bit about it, I did the same thing with the boys, because I was like, oh, let's watch a video on the canyoneering. Your video came up, we watched it, really loved it, and I said, oh, I really want to talk to these guys and learn more about how they do it. So tell us a little bit more about the YouTube channel, how it started, and sort of how you got to the point it is now, where it's over. So I think it's at 120,000 subs now, which is pretty impressive growth.
Yeah, Aaron and I started doing some video podcasting for my agency years ago, and that got us into the whole concept of doing video production, right? And we started to become more comfortable with the gear and work our way up to more complex stuff. But it also kind of opened up our minds to focusing more effort on doing social media content. And we didn't even know what it was going to be, but we knew that we wanted to have a channel. So we started a channel. We started doing hodgepodgey kind of episodes, which you can see on our channel if you sort by oldest first, right? It wasn't until that first major fall in the COVID lockdown stuff that we started traveling a lot. And then it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, okay, this can be our channel, family travels, essentially. So
enriching.
We actually have different recollections of how things started. Like, did we start with a YouTube channel or Instagram? And we remember getting our first little vlogging setup, which was actually an iPhone with a Rode mic that plugged in and a tripod and stuff. And I was like, I think we bought that so that we could do stuff on, what was it, IGTV at the time for Instagram video.
Yeah.
And then maybe YouTube came a few months after that. But we had inspiration during that period of time watching, Bucket List Family. And I don't know if we had discovered Carrie and Nate at that point or not, but seeing some other families traveling the world and having really cool experiences was inspiring.
Yeah.
Did that help you guys in the decision-making process to actually go and travel yourself, watching some of these other families and these vlogs and the adventures they were having?
Yeah, and that was definitely another, instead of one day, make it day one realization for us. Watching all these channels having these experiences around the world and thinking, oh my gosh, I want to see that. I want to feel that. I want to be there. And I want to show our kids that. I want our kids to, go on a deserted island and jump out of a helicopter into the water. We want these experiences for our kids just as badly as we wanted it for ourselves. And we decided, let's make it happen. How do we make it happen? Do it now.
And to some extent, I mentioned that until a couple of years ago, I had never been off of this continent. And part of that was deliberate, thinking, why would I want to spend all that money on a flight that's 8 hours long to go across the ocean when there's so much to explore here? I mean, I love Mexico. The U.S. has every climate imaginable, every culture imaginable, at least, for me at that time. And then seeing some of the other content that we did on YouTube was no, there's literally a whole other world out there, and we've got to go check it out. And it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, I mean, the length of the flights, the cost and complexities of the travel, the exit from your comfort zone. Once you start to do it, it's not a problem anymore. Right. But it's just that first step to get out of that comfort zone, that bubble, that is toughest.
And the more different the culture is, the more fascinating it is, the more enriching the experience is. So we almost want to do what else is out there? What else is different? What else have we never seen or thought of before? We have to find it.
You started the YouTube channel. It started off as a bit of a variety channel, family challenges, bits and pieces like that. You moved into doing more travel content, once you realized that's what you guys want to pursue. So what are some of the things that you think have been the reason the channel's gone from where it was to now 100,000 subs and lots of people watching and lots of engagement? One thing I personally noticed with your videos is they were super engaging. I have a very short attention span, and I was able to watch your content all the way through and get a lot of value out of it. So just walk us through, sort of how you got to the point you are now, how you think about videos, and then a little bit about the process of actually making the videos that go on the channel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all.
I mean, I think that 99.9% of people who get into video production probably start off being really bad at it, unless you're Steven Spielberg and just natural
and studying it your whole life.
It's so, even though Aaron has some background in video production, from college and internships and whatnot. I've been the owner of a creative agency for more than 2 decades now. I've been a designer and an artist my entire life, but still the medium of video just has so many challenges in terms of storytelling, the video production, audio, editing, and everything else. So it's definitely an evolution, I think, for most people. And pretty early on, we joined Matt LeBlanc's Lost Creator Academy just to get up to speed as quickly as possible. And that was really helpful. You're learning alongside a lot of other creators who are learning with you. Mm-hmm. And Matt LeBlanc himself is a travel creator that does really epic stuff. He's been very successful. So it was inspiring and it was educational. But it just took a lot of time to kind of build to that point, and you realize going through that process that what's most important is almost everything. If you had to pick one aspect of this practice that would be most important, probably storytelling. I think anybody would say that, but I also think it really helps to have so much more than that. And we pretty early on were putting out content that at the time we felt was pretty epic, and it wasn't getting any traction at all. And so we would put it out to that LCA community for input. And one of the things that's really stuck with us is someone said, it seems like you're just making home movies.
And we're like, oh
for your own family.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And I think to some extent we could blame Bucket List Family for that, because that's what they do. And I mean, even to this day, and yet they were massively successful from doing that. So it's hard to say, what worked for them won't work for other people necessarily. So, I mean, I think that just started us down a path of trying to improve every component with each new episode. So let's try to be better about storytelling. Let's try to be better with pacing. Let's try to be better with our video footage and with our audio and with our editing, and try to make those incremental improvements along the way. And I think that that helps in terms of the acceleration of our channel growth over the past couple of years.
And that all comes back to our name, Always Be Changing, which originated as a core value for Phil's company, because it's about always improving, always growing, and open to change, of course.
Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are watching this that this may have been the episode that may have motivated them to actually, like you're saying, Phil, get out there and actually go, who cares about the cost? Let's just go and try traveling and see if we enjoy it. So, no, what would you say to those people that are maybe on the fence about potentially going traveling, and who may be considering it now after watching this episode?
Try it instead of one day. Make it day one. Whatever you're thinking or dreaming, do it.
Never going to regret travel.
No.
And it can be expensive. It certainly takes a lot of money for us away from other things, physical things for sure, but even retirement. But like you said, this is the time, what's the quote?
You can make
travel, money returns, time doesn't. Something like that.
That's it.
This is the time to have these experiences and to share them with the kids while they're passionate about being in the family, like you said. So I don't think anyone ever prioritizes travel and ends up regretting it.
100%. I was about to say that I haven't met a family yet that is spending money and time and effort and energy traveling that's gone, oh, actually, this is a waste of time. I'll just go back to my 9-to-5 life and the grind, So, that's incredible. Thank you so much, guys. Where can everyone find you guys if they want to learn more about Always Be Changing and your family?
Followabc.com is our website, and we take that website pretty seriously. I mean, obviously, that's my business, so we put a lot of effort into putting good content up there, a lot of information about us, ways to contact us, ways to join our email list and participate in giveaways and that sort of thing. So that's a really good way. We also try to respond to pretty much every comment on YouTube. So
and on Instagram, DMs. So we try to do as much as we can with our followers. If they reach out to us, we'll respond.
Thank you so much, guys. And hopefully I catch you guys on the road.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, hope so.
Take
Thanks,
care,
Jimmy.
Jimmy.